Collective vision. A central pillar for the TGR philosophy is about us in the diaspora developing a collective vision for Africa. Without vision, there can be no sense of direction. We need to develop a vision for Africa which serves as the driving engine, motivating our efforts and allowing us to develop the resilience and persistence needed to overcome the inevitable challenges we are going to face. This vision must be focused on what Africa can become and what Africa's true potential is, rather than focusing on what Africa looks like right now. The world we live in is the product of the collective imagination of mankind. All progress stems from focusing on what's possible. We need to have a vision for Africa which motivates us to want to devote our collective resources to help build it. Those of us who adhere to the Great Return philosophy believe that our vision for Africa should be centered on the idea of helping Africa achieve economic self-sufficiency. We believe Africa has all the resources needed to supply itself with the goods and services that it has become so heavily dependent on foreign imports. Economic self-sufficiency will lift millions of Africans out of poverty and improve the living standards of Africans. Economic self-sufficiency will also allow Africa to be respected as an economic power. The historical experience of colonialism and imperialism was the direct result of a lack of economic power. And for us to ensure that Africa is strong enough to defend itself, Africa will need economic power. The less we are reliant on the rest of the world, the less leverage the rest of the world has on Africa. We also want to build an Africa that is so prosperous that African people will no longer feel the need to leave their native lands in order to migrate to foreign lands in search of great opportunities. It is unnatural for a person to leave their native lands and migrate to a foreign land, and historically such migration only takes place as a result of extreme events such as wars, famines and geological disasters. African people need a revival of a sense of pride of being African, and it's part of our collective vision to reinstate such pride in the motherland. We also believe that Africa has the opportunity to become the center of world civilization once again. African civilizations were once the pillar of world civilizations. People from Europe, the Far East, Asia and America traveled to Africa to study and acquire knowledge, much like we have done in relation to the Western world. We believe that Africa is poised to once again become the center of global civilization because we have the advantage of being able to improve upon the blueprint laid down by the developed world. Modern Western civilization, which is now viewed as the blueprint for other civilizations to follow, was the byproduct of an experiment which was begun approximately 200 years ago. At the time, this represented a radical departure from classical civilizations. And just like any experiment, there are always unintended consequences. Because we in the diaspora have lived in the Western world, we have become enlightened about some of the shortcomings of the Western civilization. That is why it's important to us that we are able to safeguard African development from blindly adopting everything that the West has done. Part of our collective vision is to utilize the blueprints from successful nations which have managed to develop and go a step further and improve on some of the shortcomings. We want to help build an Africa that has its own clear identity, that isn't simply a reflection of its colonial masters, but an identity that is uniquely African, which we as Africans have chosen for ourselves. We want to see Africa show some creativity, originality and innovative thinking, especially when it comes to solving some of its problems, but also how we build modern African nations. By combining the blueprint of the developed world with our own innovative, creative and original thinking, we can build an African civilization that would become the blueprint for all future global civilizations.